Good evening. Today, why I probably don't like your axe collar wrap brace thingy. And the reason I say that is because usually when I see these on the internet or tutorials, I think that looks awful. I would never want to use that. So today I'm going to tell you why, and that in turn will give us kind of a set of parameters around which to be thinking about the problem. Now obviously this is partially subjective because it's about user experience, but it's not entirely subjective. A lot of it is objective. It's just a matter of how much these things that inhibit the use of the axe, are going to affect an individual and how they use their axe, or honestly even if they use their axe. So basically these are here, in my view, to protect the handle in case of damage from overstrikes and accidents. Say you're limbing and you miss and you smack the handle here, you're splitting and you hit a shard of wood and it smacks right here. But also for just stress, because this is a really common breakage point right here, right along this line where this dips down and it cuts through the grain, and this will really go a long way to hold that together. So it's not just misuse, actually, like it can just be hard use too. Now why is this important? It's important because of handling. You should be able to handle the axe all over the place without thinking about it, fluidly, mindlessly, seamlessly, transitioning and making this transition from here to here. So I should be able to do this without thinking about it because I do it all the time. If I were to cut down even a not very big tree, I might handle the axe here hundreds of times. I don't know, I've never counted, but I do it a lot. Most strokes, like if I'm bucking, I'm indexing right here with my axe. It just depends on the kind of work you do, but I think it's more and more true the more kind of diverse type of work you do and the more you end up walking around, looking at your work, like if you're limbing or splitting or something like that. And the reason is because this is the balance point, and this is where you can handle the axe quickly and fluidly and, do your thing. So I'm like looking at my tree here and I flip this around and boom. It's all kind of this fluid motion, and I don't want to have to think or adjust at all when I do that. Now this is not a minor point because again, it happens so much. I spend so much time handling the axe in this area and making this transition over and over and over and over that I don't want anything in my way. Okay, I think I beat that horse to death. And mauls, it's the same thing. It's even worse because they're heavier. So if I'm using a maul, it's usually either dragging it on the ground, just sitting there, or I'm literally dragging it along to the next task, or I'm handling it right here where I can easily, do whatever I want with it, and boom. It's like, again, like this kind of fluid motion, and this is the place where you can handle this really quickly and easily. Now frequently on mauls you'll see like a large rubber bumper that comes down about 3 or 4 inches. So that's out because it makes you have to hold the thing right here and it's too large and lumpy to actually hold the thing itself. I've seen pieces of angle iron, like 2 to 3 inch pieces welded on here to protect the front of the handle. Same problem, plus if you're not paying attention you can injure yourself on that. Obviously this is fiberglass. It's fiberglass for a reason, because then I can think about splitting wood and not about protecting the handle. And this is the only place I use fiberglass handles, but I love that handle because I beat it to death and it still works. Okay, so let's get specific about what I don't like. I don't like excessive thickness. Obviously, again, if the thing is so big and oddly shaped that you can't even hold on to it, then that's out. If it's just excessively thick and it comes, much above the thickness of the axe head itself, you don't want this sticking way out like that. At some point it just becomes a problem to hold on to because it's added so much thickness. When you grab onto something, depending on the size of your hand needs to wrap around a certain amount to have like a comfortable grip that's not going to cause your hand to cramp and gives you some control. So there may be situations where you have a super thin, say, hatchet handle or something, and you'd want to add some thickness. That's fine. Maybe you could use that to your advantage at some point. But you want this transition here to be smooth. That's important. So I've seen a lot of leather guards that come out, they're pretty thick, and then they just stop on a squared edge of leather. Well, that creates a speed bump that you're going to run into, and that's no good. So at least bevel those off and make that transition more smooth. Paracord or thick cord of any kind has the same problem, this sudden speed bump. The other thing I don't like is a lot of grippy, different texture. I want the texture to be very similar to the handle again. I would prefer there's nothing here, basically. That's what I would prefer. I think the handle's fine the way it is. The only reason this is here is to protect the handle. So, in that light, I want something that makes a smooth transition and I don't have this sudden like change of texture that I have to adjust to when I get up here and have to adjust to get off of it and then grab the smooth handle again. Now I know some people say that they like the texture because it gives them grip. For what? You know, I just don't get that. I've done so much chopping through, you know, with one hand on axes and hatchets through just miles of wood, and I don't get that. Okay, just a couple more quick ones. If it's made of metal, it's too cold. You know, it's cold. It's getting cold out here now. My fingers are starting to hurt a little bit. And if this was metal, I would not be holding it here. Basically, I wouldn't be able to hold it because my hand would just be getting colder and colder and colder. No thanks. Also, if metal like baling wire or sheet metal gets damaged, then there's a potential for injury, and you're going to have to stop and fix that somehow. You know, file it down or whatever you got to do. So I'm not a big fan of metal for those reasons. My favorite overall is rawhide because I like skin and I like working with natural materials, and it's highly functional, it's beautiful, it's a little bit of an investment. I have a video series on that I'll link at the end here. If you do it, some people commented that they used rawhide chew toys, like big, you know, the big rawhide chew toys for dogs, and just soaked them and unwrapped them and were able to use that. It's a bit of an investment though. This one is experimental muslin with a natural glue. And I think that's probably going to be the solution for something quick, is some kind of cloth with some kind of glue. Now that could be anything from, you know, muslin cloth with a natural glue to like some kind of fiberglass resin, super glue, you know, some kind of super strong nylon fiber tape stuff. I don't really know. But regardless, I think that's going to be the ticket for something that's quick, nice and smooth transition, you know, nothing too weird with the texture, and just kind of basically tactily invisible, because I like that tactile invisibility where I'm not really noticing this. This has a slightly different texture and it's slightly thicker. Again, I'd rather it wasn't there at all, but it doesn't really bother me when I'm using the axe. I think leather can work okay, but a couple things to keep in mind. First, go on the flesh side and bevel this transition right here down. You know, maybe 3/4 of an inch or even an inch back. Start to bevel and thin the leather towards, like in a slope towards this edge, and make this edge pretty thin. Get the leather wet. Don't be afraid to get leather wet. It all comes out of the tan pits wet. You know, a lot of people are afraid to get leather wet because they think it's going to ruin it. It can, you know, change the finish and cause it to become crustier. If you do it over and over and over again, it becomes brittle. But it's not a big deal to get your leather wet once. Get it nice and tight. Stretch that really good. Don't use huge, big holes with a big leather lace. That makes no sense to me at all. I keep seeing that. Use a finer thread, maybe like wax linen or something, and do something to make that seam as flat as possible and unobtrusive. For people that just need something really quick, say you're a beginner, you just got your first axe and you haven't put anything together yet, just grab some electrical tape, wrap about 3 times around, about 3 or 4 inches down. You can always unwrap it and add something later, but it'll give you like decent protection right off the bat. Alright, that's it. I hope this video is somewhat effective in starting to change the trends that I see about this, because they really, you know, if I see many more of these videos, I'm going to drive my palm through my forehead. And watch my video on making the rawhide brace. If you don't even do it, you'll probably learn something interesting about rawhide and sinew and maybe some other stuff. So thank you for watching, and good night. So yeah, this is the ticket right here. Handling the axe here, where you can, you know, maneuver it really quickly into position. Also this transition right here from the ground, because that's going to happen a lot too. You know, your axe is hanging, you don't have to hold the weight up like this. It's just hanging there comfortably, and you got your stop here, and then you're ready to go. Bop, boom, snap.